You either live by the gun or you die by the sword.
Welcome to the Good, the Bad, and the Weird podcast. I'm Nicho.
And I'm Chris.
And today, inspired by Notting Hill, we decided to do a massive cult rom-com that took on the world and kind of partially defined a generation-ish.
A little bit.
Little. We're doing Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Truly one of the greatest romantic comedies of our time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And very odd in its own way, too, which is what
It is.
More along the lines of the rom-coms I prefer to watch, like Risk Cutter's a love story as well.
For sure.
For those unfamiliar, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World follows Scott Pilgrim, who falls in love with the chameleon-haired Ramona Flowers and must fight her 7 evil exes. So, takes the whole I had a bad relationship to a completely different level.
A new height, a new level, if you will.
Boo.
The entire movie is very much in line with the book, which was of course the first one, and also the game, which also came before the movie in this instance.
First graphic novel was actually Scott Pilgrim's Precious Little Life. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World was the second one.
It was. However, the moment the first book was done, talks of making Scott Pilgrim in general into a movie were already on the books. It was a wildly successful graphic novel and book series, so we knew it was going to come. Just kind of surprised at how fast it showed up, to be honest with you.
Yes and no. I'll get into it in just a minute.
Sure.
So, Scott Pilgrim is based on the graphic novels by Brian Lee O'Malley and screenplay by Michael Bacall and Edgar Wright, directed by Wright, who is some would recognize from directing that shithead book Shoplifter in Notting Hill as he was in Shaun of the Dead.
He was.
That director, Edgar Wright.
Yeah.
It stars Michael Cera as Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah.
Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Ramona Flowers. Karen Culkin as Wallace Wells. And Ellen Wong as Knives Chow. And I do just want to say from the get-go, one, I'm a fan of this manga or graphic novel to begin with.
Sure.
But the whole cast is now star-studded.
Of course.
And honestly, this is back when I was watching who was going to be cast and what was coming out. I was watching trailers. This is the dream cast for me. I don't think there are any characters in this that weren't cast well. Like, everyone is just exactly perfect.
Oh, yes.
For their role.
I agree. I do think that, and like, they talk a little bit about it here and there, about who and why they picked who they did, because they did have options to pick some very big names when they were looking to cast. And granted, now everybody on this list is wildly famous and doing very well for themselves.
I've brought up what a bunch of them are in. I have it written down for them.
I don't necessarily think it was the intention in the same way that other movies are like, oh, we're going to use a younger or a lesser known actor because we want them to be like the fresh face. I think these just happen to be the best fits, and they all happened to be fairly young or unknown in their career at the time.
That is something that they brought up in the commentary, is that they were all about the same age, so they all hung out, did kind of the same stuff.
It worked so well.
And I will say, when I first watched this movie, I was not a fan.
Sure.
Because I was one of those stick-up-the-ass purists complaining that it didn't follow the graphic novel close enough.
Sure you
And
were.
I even have noted in my notes of rewatching this movie, God, I used to be an obnoxious prick. Or obnoxious purist, but either way.
Sure.
And I'll get into it a little bit later of why the movie does deviate from the graphic novel. Before we do that, our sources for today's episode include technical commentary by Edgar Wright and director of photography Bill Pope, who is massive. He's so much. Commentary by Edgar Wright, co-writer Michael Bacall and Brian Lee O'Malley, as well as commentary by Michael Cera, Jason Schwartzman, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Ellen Wong, Brandon Ruth, Anna Kendrick, Aubrey Plaza, Karen Culkin, and Mark Webber, who play a good chunk of the main cast. And my never-ending finds of weird things that happen in commentaries, it's always the actors that talk about just random shit.
They sure do. They remember the strangest bits.
There was a food delivery mid-commentary for one of them, and they're just like eating off screen, like, oh, this is quite good.
Yes.
Do you want some? No, I can't have it. And then also at one point, Michael Cera brings up that he traumatized the cast by showing them the 911 call of the woman who got torn up by a chimp and didn't realize that it would upset people.
I I feel that. I also was when that happened and it became famous. I was also like, oh my god, everyone needs to know about this. And my friends had to be like, Christine, nobody needs to know about this.
I knew of the event. I didn't know about the 911 call until I listened to a Suicide Silence song.
That's a whole thing.
Yeah.
That terrible tragedy whole thing. Also, fun Christine lore fact, jump-started my intense fear of apes and monkeys.
Oh, good to know.
I do not like them. They are not cute.
No, I don't think they're cute either, but...
They could kill you. They rip your face off.
Well,
they will rip your face off.
I know. I'll find a movie for us to do.
I'm sure there's plenty.
But also, other little bit of trivia that I like that Edgar Wright doesn't take himself so seriously all the time, but he did comment that he didn't want to do a Conan the Barbarian Arnold Schwarzenegger commentary because he said Schwarzenegger, when he did commentary for Conan the Barbarian,
mm-hmm.
all he did was describe what was happening on screen.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm finding these types of commentaries more interesting when it's bullshit, too.
I think it also helps that the commentary for this one, A, is a bit of a surprise. The back of the DVD, at least the one that we have, does say, like, commentary from cast and crew, but it does not go into, like, the list of...
No.
Like, when you had to warn me, you're like, by the way, there's multiple commentaries that you have to listen to.
Yeah, there's a total, like, the cast of characters, that's split up into 2 different commentaries.
Yes. So there's 3 commentaries available on the one DVD, and this isn't even, like, a super luxury version of it. I know there's some that come with books and extra writing and, like, background lore, and, like, I think there's a book that shows all the photographs that, like, they talk about, where, like, oh, this is the original inspiration for, like, the house or like the place where they're eating. I'd
say this is still the best commentary, especially that first one with Edgar Wright, Michael Bacala, and Brian Lee O'Malley. It was great. Yeah, you have all the writers, directors of everything of this doing it, and that's one thing I love. As I learned, is that they wanted to make the movie for a long time, but Wright kept stalling with the studio until O'Malley had written enough books that he could use. I don't blame him though, because, and we will get to like how even then it still impacted the movie. That is one of my biggest pet peeves, is when a movie series catches up to and then tries to outcompete the book. And then people are so upset because it doesn't follow the book anymore. And then you have to, like, decide, well, are you a book person or a movie person? Because they're no longer the same story. Yeah, and that's fine, too. But this one specifically, they finished writing before the series was done, too. So. They did, but I think in this case, it feels more like a slight alternate reality, as opposed to some where it's, like, a completely different series. No, exactly. Full Metal Alchemist. Very strongly Full Metal Alchemist. God, I wish people saw more of Gintama with, like, them. Gintama explains it perfectly of how they get caught up to stuff, and it's great. Yes. But also, Wright did mention that he was also inspired and pulled from other coming-of-age movies, so... Of course, and then also just the styling of the movie in general, with its comic book / video game styling. There's a lot of movies that they regularly reference. Surprisingly, Shaun of the Dead on the list. Kind of impressed that, like, so close to the source. So you're right. So. It is, but normally they're like, yes, I pulled from all these distant movies that some people know about. And he's like, no, I pulled from my own shit, because it was good. And everyone's like, yeah, it was good. Yeah, exactly. Pull from your own shit. Yes. But other movies that he talks about having, like, being inspirational is Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, Dig, Phantom of Paradise. You know, there's a few others that he talks about for video game styling specifically. I'm not familiar with them, though, so I'm going to have to check them out. Yeah, I didn't find a list of what he was referencing, but... I did a little digging because, honestly, I do like the styling of this movie a lot, and it's not something I typically go for. Mostly because video game movies usually are about video games that I don't play, because I play a lot of quote-unquote girly cozy games. Right. Nothing girly about cozy games. There's not, but there's also not a lot of movies or TV shows that go along with them, usually. I mean, Animal Crossing has one. Yeah, we don't look directly at that. But it's got Takashi Miike as Pascal the Otter. That's not helping. Not helping, but, like, I'm not getting any Last of Us TV shows for my normal stuff. So, like, hearing that there's a bunch that are styled like this that I wouldn't need to watch the original content for, I was interested. I've now made a list. Gonna check them out later. You might like the Ike boys. I might. I'll have to give them a go. Alright, before we get into it, Chris, what are we drinking today? A classic Coke Zero. Cheers. Cheers. Tastes so disappointing to my Diet Coke mouth. Yeah, we didn't spike it this time either.
We didn't, because I have somewhere to be.
Yeah.
AKA my house.
But also it fits because Scott doesn't drink.
That's true.
Except for once, and then he's an ass.
Well, you gotta know your limits.
Yeah. But Scott Pilgrim kicks off, and I immediately like the style that they go into, because this is the first, I don't know if this is the first one, but it's one of the earlier ones where we started to see companies start to fiddle with their logos and do like custom ones specifically for movies. This one is a pixel logo for Universal. It
definitely was like the height of the trend at the time. I think eventually Marvel killed it into the ground. But like this was still fresh and new at the time. So people were still really into this. I remember like it would end up on merch and logos and stuff. So you could like buy this version for Scott Pilgrim on like a notebook or a pencil or a hat.
Yeah, obligatory fuck you, Marvel.
Yeah, well.
Or more so Disney, but anywho.
Well, Marvel was definitely the one who started that. Disney has been doing it since the dawn of Disney. There's a whole long video, if anyone's interested, on how Disney changes its logo per movie.
Interesting.
Yeah. Depending on who you are, it is. I liked the show.
But Scott Pilgrim, we start off in the mysterious land of Canada, and Scott Pilgrim is dating a high school girl.
Toronto.
Yeah, specifically Toronto. But it's quirky from the get-go, and setting up Scott really being a loser.
I love how much of a loser they put Scott to be.
I do too, but like when I first saw this, I didn't realize like how much, and even when I read it, I just thought Scott was quirky. I didn't see him as an absolute loser that he is.
That's true, and I think that's because the way that they show Scott being a loser is not in the standard like comedy way of being like, oh my god, look at the loser, and then have like the high school bully being like, loser.
Yeah.
He's just like a 22-year-old loser. So he's kind of independent, but not really. He's kind of got hobbies, but not really. Like he's got like the one, and he's like okay at it, but like not great.
No, nothing. He's just kind of a bum.
He is just kind of a bum.
Yeah. Also, we have young Neil playing Zelda, which there was a lot of Zelda in this.
There is.
Which we also get word sound effects, which is the nice little touch to start really bringing in that, hey, it's a comic. Opening treasure sound when he opens the door for knives kind of fits with young Neil playing Zelda in the background, but also like Scott opening up, here's my treasure, everyone.
Yeah. I also like that all of the like extra special effects seem to like really revolve around Scott and his thoughts and actions. I think it was the director who talks about how like they wanted it to be Scott's viewing of the world and you're just seeing that. And maybe the rest of the world sees things slightly differently than Scott, but it doesn't matter because you're in Scott's world now.
Or maybe the rest of the world is regular and Scott's just a
really fucking
special
loser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that argument the best, but you never know.
Yeah, it's instead of being isekai'd into a different world and having the superpowers, he's just a regular person.
He's just manipulative daydreaming hard enough so that he has video game sound effects.
Oh, yeah. Well, I also like the little titles of everyone giving their like little quote-unquote fun facts that are just like obvious nothing facts.
They're just useless fun facts.
Well, it's also because they do that in the manga as well, but I also like with the manga that they include like how to play a couple of their songs, how to make a vegan shepherd's pie.
That's true. There is a little bit more, I think, in the comic, but in the movie, they are the useless fun facts you would tell at a corporate get together.
Yeah, exactly. But I also appreciate that showing Scott is putting up a bit of a front and just how stupid he is at times too, because he takes Knives' coat and just throws it on the ground. He doesn't even hang it up. He's trying to be a gentleman.
Yes.
But he's just a dipshit.
He is. Bless him.
And from here, like, we barely have time to really get introduced to everyone. Like, we're like, here's this person, this person, this person, this person. Cool. But that's what's great is because that's, like, the main cast of characters that you're going to need. There's only, like, a couple that come up down the line.
That's true. Oh, yeah, no. Like, there is a large, quote-unquote, list of people in this movie, but we really only care about a very small amount.
Exactly. And we're introduced to them, like, right then and there.
Very true.
And from here we go right into the music and the cool opening credits to this, which...
The music in this movie's killer. It's so good. Even Scott's shitty band is pretty damn good.
Written by Beck.
Obviously, because it's honestly pretty good for being a shitty garage band.
Yep. Also, the soundtrack was partially inspired by Brian Lee O'Malley. When he was writing the graphic novels, he released playlists to listen to while you read the manga.
That is...
Or graphic novel, I forget. It was sold in the manga section. I'm going to probably keep calling it a manga for a long time.
It's okay. We know what you mean. But no, I love that that's what he did, because that is currently, like, a trend that happens with, like, fan fiction writers, is they will give you, like, a Spotify playlist to listen to while you read their fan fiction. And it's the most stupid, nerdy thing. I love it, don't get me wrong. But it's the most stupid, nerdy, lame thing. And I love that it's embedded in Scott Pilgrim's lore. Is that, like, that's part of who he is stupid, nerdy fandom thing.
I now want to do that and then ruin someone's day by writing a very good story and putting its soundtrack to, like, Hanatarash and the Stalids, just some horrible noise metal.
I have been rickrolled on fanfiction.net, and that is embarrassing.
Beautiful. But I just love the energy of it all. And I guess the opening credits were suggested by Quentin Tarantino, of all people.
That's amazing.
And also there's a lot of cool... And they give him a nod later on, which we'll bring up, and we'll probably ruin that scene for some people.
Of course, well.
But all the X's have their numbers in the credits.
They do.
As well as everyone has some type of symbol for them. And it's got that, like, really raw, kind of punkish energy going for it. Because it really feels DIY, because I think that's what's great about this movie, too, from the get-go, is so much of it captures that DIY, just your friends are together doing shit because it's what you do.
I agree. And I think it's what made it a cult classic very, very quickly. But it's also what most critics complained about literally the minute the movie came out.
Shocking.
I know.
My complaint was that it didn't follow the graphic
That was
novel
the other
enough.
half. That was literally the other half of the critic responses that I was reading through on, like, the review sites for when this came out. Half of them were pissed that it didn't follow the book that they liked, and the other half were pissed that it felt a little bit DIY.
Well, that's what's great. They love
And
Lord of the Rings.
and that's literally what every fan loved about this.
Yeah, I mean, look at Lord of the Rings, the highest budget amateur film ever made.
True. However, that one did not receive bad critics.
No.
In fact, it got some of the most outstanding criticisms.
Everyone likes Knives.
Of course. She's cute. She's sweet.
Yeah, she's very adorable.
She is, but, like, I love how they do Knives, because normally, and especially, okay, we have to come to an agreement. This is a rom-com. I know everyone doesn't like to think about it, but it is. Mm-hmm. And normally, if you have, like, what will soon be an ex, there's gotta be something wrong with, like, the relationship in some way. Knives is not the problem.
No,
She's
exactly.
so sweet. She tries so hard in this relationship. She's, like, planning dates for them. She comes up with cute couple things for them to do.
Not even. I'll get into that in just a bit, because it shows how shitty Scott is.
Scott really is the dirt.
Or the scum of the earth, as Kim calls him later on.
Honestly, correct.
But there is something she brings up in this. She asks, are you really happy, or are you just really evil? A good setup to what Scott can potentially become of, are you happy, or are you going to be another evil ex?
It is a really good setup. I also think it does add to Scott's whole loser scenario. Mm-hmm. Because, like, if he had put in, honestly, the most minuscule amount of work into Knives's and his relationship, it would have changed who he is just a bit. And I don't think that would have helped the desire to suddenly battle all these, like, random people.
Nope. And on top of that, he hasn't left high school. He's dating a high school girl now.
That's true.
That he met on the bus, and they've maybe held hands once.
I mean, yeah, it's a little weird.
Yeah.
It's a little weird.
Yeah. I mean,
look,
I dated a 17-year-old when I was 19, so.
Yeah, my ex, like, roommate at one point had, like, a very high school to college relationship because they dated in high school, but they were a distant gap. They weren't the same year. And it was one of the strangest things to be like, okay, so where's your boyfriend again? Oh, not here. Okay, it's a little weird. Like, it's not that weird, but it's a little weird.
Yeah.
So I feel a little bad for Knives at times, because she's trying so hard, but she needs, like...
She's innocent.
She needs not Scott.
Well, she kind of gets not Scott later on.
That's true, she does.
Yeah. But that is one thing, too, because her story is very good in this. And I'll get into it the more we talk about her.
Yes.
But from here, we're on to Wallace Wells and the apartment that's heavily based on one of O'Malley's friends.
Yes. Like, they had pictures. They're like, what if we just made it look like this place?
Yeah. Well, I also like this bit, too, because Scott is smart enough to try and do crowd control.
Yeah.
Before Wallace hears from lies, or quote-unquote, horrid lies from his friends. But Wallace, I love it too because it sets up Wallace so well because he is a nosy bitch.
Yes, he
because
is.
The moment he gets to the bathroom, his sister's already calling, or Scott's sister's already calling him.
Yep. Yeah, no, the word travels fast in Toronto.
Oh yeah. Well, it's easy when you have cell phones in this day and age.
That's true.
Also, one thing I noticed, the newspaper he's reading, Lucas Lee is on it.
Oh yeah.
Putting him early on into it.
That's true. It is a good little touch.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, this, again, we're setting up the cast real quickly. Wallace is like the last non-Ramona character that we really care about.
That is true.
And even then, he has a different role compared to the rest of the friends. Wallace, more so, Wallace, and maybe it's because they share a bed together, but Wallace seems to have a much more intimate relationship with Scott.
Yeah.
Where he's kind of his voice of reason at times.
He definitely feels a little bit like his conscience occasionally.
Mm-hmm. Again, he's asking all good questions of, why are you doing this, Scott?
Honestly, it feels like he's the mature friend who's, like, hanging out with Scott and, like, waiting for Scott to, like, finish developing that frontal lobe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're not even dating. They're just hanging out with intent to date, basically.
Yeah, it does feel like that's Scott's reasoning and, like, just dragging this poor girl along.
Mm-hmm. No, because we go from there to their first date that we see them doing, some ninja game, which I think it's a dumb way to show, like, I think it's an alright way to show that they're in sync, but it's a dumb way to show what the studio intended. It was pushed by the studio to explain Scott's fighting skills.
That is dumb. I don't like that reasoning. However, when I first saw the movie, DDR2 was incredibly popular.
I know. I was in that era of high school, too.
Same. So, when this came out, to me, I was like, oh, Scott and Knives are those nerdy people who go and, like, are good at DDR in public, not even in their own home.
Well,
to me, that was, like, perfectly logical, because he's a loser.
Well, that's the thing. If they're trying to equate video game logic, or, like, someone's like, oh, I play so much video games, I should be good at this skill.
True.
It
doesn't.
No, he's not, like, playing Street Fighter or anything. It's some stupid ninja game where they just run up and down and kind of, like, maybe it watches their arms.
Yeah, okay, so... And this is the other thing that frustrates me. It's clearly supposed to be DDR-based, because that was what was popular at the time. I do wish they would have gone for one of the slightly less well-known or popular arcade games, because there are plenty of arcade games that are, like, physically demanding. Like, there's a button one that you have to, like reaction time push, like, 8 different buttons.
Yeah.
There's, like, a couple boxing versions. There's, like, a couple that, like, do watch you and, like, have you fight or, like, shoot guns and stuff like that. Are they as popular? No. They've never been as popular. The only one that occasionally becomes popular is the punching bag one, and it only becomes popular because, like, some really strong chick will just, like, wreck the score one day.
Mm-hmm.
DDR's just kind of, like, a fad that, like, it's cool, and if all of Scott's, like, abilities were dodging base, maybe. But whole kicking, punching thing, I don't get it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. There is a line later on that they say that he's the strongest fighter in the province, which I think that would have been a fine one-off line to explain why he can kick such ass.
Sure. Honestly, if there had been a photo on a wall somewhere of Scott as a child with, like, a karate uniform. No, I know there's not, but it would have fit with his lore. He would have been, like, the karate kid who gave up because they got a yellow belt and, like, they called it quits in like, 6th grade. Mm-hmm. But it would have explained just a little bit why he's coordinated.
Yeah, just something in the background.
Exactly. Not even address it, just, like, throw a picture somewhere.
Yeah. And I know in the way that studios are, sometimes you gotta lose some battles so you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, it's not the worst. It's just a little bit odd. But there's more odd to come, so, like, do we really care?
No. But the one thing I do like about the scene, too, is it's a good way of showing Scott as even more of we really start to see him as a freeloader.
He really is.
Because it's minimal until you watch later on, but I don't think Scott can afford real dates because he has Knives pay for them to play the game. And, like, he feels there's a part where, like, he's inconvenienced where they're talking and then he's just kind of, like, nodding, like, hey, put coins in, please.
Yes. Scott, though, does also remind me of some, like, people I knew in high school who, like, they could have afforded the game, but if you can afford the game, they're, like, hell not gonna pay. They're gonna pretend like they can't afford the game. And Scott reminds me of one of those asshats.
No, that's exactly it. Because I don't think Scott pays for anything in this whole movie.
No, maybe he sleeps on a guy's couch with a guy.
Just a mattress on the floor. Thank you very much.
Apologies, not even the couch.
Get man lore right.
Apologies.
But I mean, maybe he does pay. He does pay probably for some bus fare down the line, but we don't actually see him pay it because, like, even Ramona says that she'll chip in because he's
I
like
would
5
argue
cents
he's stolen
short.
somebody's bus pass.
Yeah, how is he getting on the bus to meet Knives in the first place?
I think he's either stolen someone's bus pass or he's ticket skipping.
Maybe. Well, but their date continues on to Goodwill and the music store, which is a good... It continues to set up Scott as being self-centered.
Yeah.
Knives is talking to him, and he doesn't really seem to be paying much attention to her. He's just kind of like, okay, cool.
I feel so bad because Knives is trying so hard to make this, like, a nice date.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. And we get a nice, like, little cool shot of, like, them walking through the snow paths. That's potentially an X, a crossroads, as some would say.
Two ships passing in the night.
Yeah. But the one thing that Scott does is he won't let her into his real home.
Well, fair.
The house that he shares with Wallace.
I've seen Scott's real home. I wouldn't either.
But to even show that he hasn't moved on, he lives across the street from his childhood home.
That's true.
Showing, yeah, he hasn't moved on to being an adult at all.
Yeah, no, he hasn't taken any effort.
Yes. And even his dreams are stupid and childish. Where
I do love his dreams.
He's like, why am I so alone? And we get Ramona rolling in through his dreams, and she's like, you're just having a stupid dream.
Yeah.
It's a good simple way of like setting up the dream, but then also kind of setting up, hey, she's kind of in his head, unfortunately.
True.
Or fortunately, whichever way you take it. Yeah. And also setting up him being a loser again because he's sleeping till noon.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But this is where we get the chance encounter with Ramona while he's on a date with Knives.
Yep.
I think even Knives picks up that
it's over.
No, not that it's over, just like Scott's kind of being a little weird now.
Yes, that's true.
Also, one thing that Wright pointed out is they kept the colors muted until this moment.
That is a good point. I'm glad you caught that one. Because there's a lot of Easter eggs and there's a lot of color fun in this movie.
I did not catch it. I had to be told it.
Okay. Well, did you catch the fun Easter egg of Scott's shirts?
The zero... Oh, yeah. They explained them in some of the commentary, so yeah.
Yes. There's a lot... Scott wears, very nerdy shirts with references to other stuff, but Scott's shirts also help dictate what to expect from Ramona next.
Interesting. I don't remember that bit.
So, at the beginning, he wears either nerdy shirts or very nondescript, mostly black or, like, white shirts. As the movie progresses, his shirts match her changing hair color.
Oh, interesting.
Until we get to the end, and then he goes back to his normal wardrobe.
Because he can be himself.
Yeah.
But we do get a cool transition from this scene, and that's the one thing about this movie. Every transition is a little different and really cool, because it goes from Knives saying Scott to Steven Stills yelling into his ear.
True.
And also, there's something else I picked up on this early on.
Mm-hmm.
The big thing that they deviated in the movie is that the band really wants to make it big.
Yes.
But also, young Neil is starting to mimic Scott early on.
That's a good point.
But we'll get into that more as the movie progresses. But now we're on to the famous party where they meet.
Ah, yes, the party.
I mean, Scott's so bored.
Scott's so bored.
This is where we start to see young Neil mimicking him. That's
true.
I'm so bored. I'm so bored.
Yeah.
He's mini Scott.
Oh, yeah, he definitely is. I do appreciate that he's picked the least interesting person to mimic, but, can't choose these things, I guess.
Hey, Scott's in a band. He's got a girlfriend. I just live here. And I play Zelda, Animal Crossing.
That's true. You got a point.
But also, Scott is so damn awkward. Like, just talking about Pac-Man at the party is really dumb, too.
True.
I mean, fun fact, but... There's
a lot of just video game bits thrown in here for those who care to find them.
Yeah, but I also relate to this at the same time where, like, I'll just spout... My brother sends me memes of, like, a normal potty conversation. True facts about serial killers.
This is very true. But I also think the way Scott handles it is, the worst way possible. Because there's not even conversation really happening around it. He just says a thing and then, leaves.
Mm-hmm.
He's just like, fun fact, gone.
Yeah, well, even the two balloons above them are gray at that point.
True.
Yeah, there's no color between them.
So true.
Yeah, also, he's a real creep stalking her at the party.
Yeah.
But it's also a fun way to build up, the legend of Ramona Flowers, who's been there, 2 weeks or a month.
I was gonna say, because isn't there, part of her backstory is she's not even Canadian, she's American?
Yes, that's the big thing. You got an American living in Canada, eh?
Whoa. Working for Amazon.
So exotic. Well, I think also more so she's from New York City, so...
Which they did, like, talk about, like, how they had teased, like, maybe they would set it there, and everyone was like, no, it needs to be in Toronto.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's where it's set. It has to be, because every location of this is based on something from O'Malley's life.
Yes. To the point where they had to actually think, if we put this in the movie, would it ruin this business's entire existence?
Or would you lose friends with this?
Yeah.
Because O'Malley's like, I can't say who's the place this is based off, but it's a friend.
Yeah, exactly.
But also, it also builds up some other developments with Jules, where she really doesn't like Scott, kind of a little bit bitchy towards him, but we'll find out why later. It feels kind of weird. It's just like that one friend you have who's constantly mean to that other friend for no one knows why.
That's true.
And also, it's setting up the dynamic with Kim Pines, because she's clearly not cool with Scott still.
That is a good point. We've already started. Already started getting all this going.
It's very lightly bringing up Scott's baggage, because he's just kind of like whatever, whereas everyone else he's moved on because he's so not simple, just
uninterested.
Carefree.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then we get to one of my favorite parts of the movie, and why one of my friends, his name is not Wallace, but I'm the only one who calls him Wallace, and he is totally my bitch forever. It's because we were huge fans of Scott Pilgrim at the time.
Understandable.
Wallace comes home drunk and pegs Scott in the head with his keys, which I think they only did it like a couple times, and they asked Sarah, like, were you okay with that? And he's like, it wasn't, I knew what he was trying to do, and I just went with it because I knew it would be good. So yeah, he really did peg him in the face with the keys.
You know what? Out of everything that could have gone wrong in this movie, I'm okay with this one.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I also like how it shows a little bit more of their relationship, where I think this is really the first part where we find out Wallace is gay. True. And Scott's like, I've met a girl. Can we pretend it's a guy?
Yeah.
Well, she's very nice. He's...
Yeah.
Just their back and forth is so great in this movie.
It's very good.
And that's the thing. Even though the movie deviates, the writing is still relatively tight, in my opinion.
I say the styling, at the very least, is so similar that it does all feel like it fits.
I mean, it feels very Edgar Wright.
It does.
Yeah. But we also get another kind of cool transition. The wake-up shot between when Wallace wakes up and him being drunk. All on the camera. No real cutting, just Culkin laid there and they turn on the lights.
I do appreciate that while this is a very heavy in CGI use movie, just because it has to be. Mm-hmm. But where they could use special or physical effects, it helps keep this movie feeling like it's watchable still to this day.
That's the thing. Almost everything when you see a person in it is done in camera.
Yeah.
Wright was very specific in the fact that he even he built scenes based off what the characters could do.
And it works really well because this movie is now over 10 years old. And it still looks pretty damn good compared to if it had all been done overly CGI'd, where we were going for just fun shots, we're going for more Ready Player One level animation. I think it would have been a very different feel.
In 3 years, it's going to be the age that Knives is supposed to be in the movie.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will.
That is very unsettling. That
it's aging rapidly.
But it's not, though. That's what's great, too, is it's not.
Oh, no. Visually, it looks the same as when it came out. It feels the same as when it came out, which I really appreciate, because I think a lot of other video game movies that were, super popular, they don't necessarily age very well because of the heavy use of CGI.
No, exactly. And this one's very stylistically used.
It is, and I think that helps a lot.
Yeah. We also get more shit that Scott can't remember when asking what's the website for Amazon.ca.
Yeah, I'm so impressed he can't remember this. It's honestly really a talent.
And doesn't know that shipping takes a couple days, back when Amazon was still good at shipping.
I would say, this is 2010. Amazon shipping was still pretty fast.
Yeah.
It wasn't next day. But we had next day, just cost money.
It was 2 day.
Yeah, which is still damn fast.
Mm-hmm. We gotta find out a little bit more about Knives. They go to her high school. Her high school life is really boring, especially looking at it as an adult, of all the drama and the relationships. And I can't remember who I was listening to someone talking about another movie, and it was all about how the reason that stuff matters so much to us as kids is because that's all we really have going on. We haven't developed fully into like what our interests are going to be, or
you are still a child.
Child.
Oh yeah. No, I think this is a great way of showing that high school is only interesting to high schoolers, and why it's weird that Scott is like still hanging around high school.
But that's the thing, is like it's also showing that he's bored with it already.
Like he could evolve if he would just put in a little effort. He could become someone.
Yeah, their game's not in sync together, and it's setting up the Nega Ninja or Nega Scott down the line.
True.
Also establishes that Wallace has a fetish for glasses.
I suppose it does.
It does, because it ties into one of the upcoming scenes.
It does. It's just not something that had been forefronted in my memory.
Mm-hmm. And even then, like, Scott has a little bit of will, because he does try breaking up with Knives on this just a little bit. He's like,
I mean, it's a weak breakup, but yeah, for Scott, it's impressive.
Yeah, well, he doesn't even finish it. He's like, I think we should, and then it cuts to band practice, showing that Scott has no balls.
None. 0 balls.
I feel as though my first relationship, she's like, give me 2 weeks, I'll show you, I'll change, and I was stupid, and I said yes.
See, but that's like young relationships. That's just how it is. Scott has reached a point where he should have evolved past this by this point.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
And it shows that also in this scene, because they're back at band practice, Scott's not really fully there, and is your girlfriend distracting you?
Yeah.
And she's like, I'll be good.
Yeah.
She's trying so hard.
She's trying so hard to be...
Knives is so sweet.
She's so sweet. Scott is just the worst.
No, exactly. And his escape mechanism is going to take a piss.
Honestly, though, that is a solid escape route. I just don't know if jumping out the window is also part of a good escape route.
It can be.
It can be.
Depends on which story you're on.
It does, very much. It depends on what's on the other side of that window.
Yeah, no, exactly. But the one thing I do like about this scene, too, we get the, like, meter going down of peeing. Also, he doesn't wash his hands.
That is gross.
But
points deducted.
I like that they use the fairy fountain music from Zelda for this, because it works so well as like a time to take a break. If like you're a fan of the series, you're kind of in on that joke. But also like transitioning into like that fantasy world of him opening the door and it's a high school hallway.
Yeah.
Again, showing he's still stuck in that high school world.
Yeah. Loser.
And Ramona showing up to his front door with the packages.
Which is honestly a miracle that he got the delivery driver that he wanted.
Well, no, it's not a miracle. They explain it away. He's like, I was hoping it was you. And she's like, I'm the only delivery girl on this side of Toronto. And
yeah. The movie does a good job of logicking it away. This is Amazon in 2010. Well, she was most certainly not the only girl delivery driver.
No, she was, and they set it up very well, because she's been using that hyperspace highway that runs through his head, and she mentions that she was surprised that no people use it.
That's true. That is the only logic here.
And why hire more when she can do the job of 10?
Well, that is corporate logic.
Yeah, not wrong.
Not wrong. A little distasteful, but not wrong.
Yeah, but he does land the date with her, and it's such a cool hangout date. Just walk around, not really.
Even when it's the girl of Scott's quote-unquote dreams, he still cannot be bothered to think up a decent date.
No, well, he can't even, like, do a date because, one, he ain't got money, as we know.
Well, or he won't use it.
But also, it sets it up so that way they're very intimate from the get-go. It's not them going to some social event or some gathering. It's just them in a park together, kind of putting out feelers for each other. True.
And it's maybe not the worst idea, but Scott's effort level here is basement level.
Yeah.
He doesn't even put on a different shirt yet. He's still in his old outfits.
Hey, he's got a cool X patch on his shoulder because he went to Xavier School for Special Kids.
Yes, he sure did. Every Saturday morning at 8.
Yes. But again, potential of showing him being an X at that point still too.
That's true. It's already foreshadowed.
Mm-hmm. And also, I do enjoy that Ramona doesn't reveal everything about herself from the get-go. She's very aloof and very...
I think it's somewhat, honestly, a very more realistic version of a dating as, a more adult person than what Scott's probably been used to.
Yeah, she doesn't want to get into her past on the first hangout.
Yeah, like she barely knows this guy.
Yeah, the last time, or she's only talked to him twice. One time at a party where he dropped some Pac-Man fact.
True.
And then he stalked her that maybe she knows. I'm sure
she
did.
does. She definitely does.
Yeah. And then
he ordered
Amazon.
a package from his house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which also, I love that bit where he just tosses the package back.
Yeah.
And it lands in the trash can. A very good, like, oh, that's a trash MacGuffin.
Yeah, didn't need that.
It starts to snow heavily, and they take the space or subspace highway to Ramona's place, which very just kind of basic apartment.
It's boring like everything else.
Yeah, except her tea selection, and I guarantee you Liver Disaster is totally a made-up one to see if people are listening.
I hope Liver Disaster's real.
But I do also appreciate how, where this movie has to go, they really speed up the romance of all this.
They do.
Because this is in like the first 20 minutes of the movie, 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah. And honestly, while this is a rom-com, we really don't care about the actual romance between these two characters. We all know we're just here to watch him fight exes. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. Sometimes that's your whole entire rom-com.
Well, I mean, I'm also here to watch something else.
I'm sure.
I do want to say, my type of women is this whole movie.
Of course.
Then this scene, even the cast comments on that goddamn Winstead every single time on this scene.
True. No.
Yeah.
It's a good point.
Yeah, they're like, how the fuck are you real?
That's why that she was chosen, I think.
Yeah. But also, it's kind of a setup for them both seeking something simple and substantial in a relationship where the sex is kind of there, but they also don't have to do it at the same time. They just want to...
They're looking for companionship.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's a great way to start it, too.
Exactly.
Yeah. And also the phone number she gives her, or she gives him in the morning, has 7 X's on it.
Oh my gosh. But also, aren't those like hugs and kisses?
Nope, just little kisses.
Just kisses. So cute. Kisses of doom.
But this is also where he invites her to battle the bands, setting up a confrontation, or potential confrontation between her and Knives.
True.
But fun little bit about that set, or just the sets in general, they simplified everything to make it comic-like. That's why it feels a little sparse, I guess.
Yeah, there's not a lot of extra knickknacks happening.
Mm-hmm. And specifically, Lee's palace, where this battle takes place, was done so well that old bands who used to play at that location thought they shot on location.
That's very impressive.
Yeah. Really cool. But also about the style, because I want to talk about it a little bit, because we've watched enough of the movie. There were people who were thinking that they were going to do kind of like a Sin City style.
I can see why they would think that, because Sin City was, at the time, a pretty, like, well-known, big, differently styled movie.
Graphic novel style.
Exactly. A lot of big colors, a lot of big action.
But Wright didn't want to do that because heavy green screening from Speed Racer that we covered earlier this year.
Yeah, and we all know how that went, so
yeah.
I can't blame him for his choice. I also just don't think that it would have fit the styling of Scott Pilgrim in general.
No.
Like, it just wouldn't have. It's a very distinct art style, and, like, having to move to real people in the first place, already a big jump. Why change more? Yeah,
even O'Malley's 2 other books, Lost at Sea and Seconds, very distinct in their style. I mean, it's his style.
Yeah, no, it's unmistakably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of style, Knives is dressing like Kim now.
I love this.
I do like this trend that we see with Knives as
she progresses.
As she gets jealous.
Yeah, but she also, like, I don't know, it feels like this is the perfect backstory for Knives. Like, she hasn't finished her backstory yet, but, like, after this movie's over, this is her core.
Yeah. Or more so could lead into jealousy, because I think when she's dressing like Kim is she's finally found a, like, older female style that she, like, kind of. Not even then, because Kim's, like, barely talks to her at all.
You don't have to talk to your role model. You just idolize them from a distance.
Yeah, because they're in a band with Scott.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also she's cool.
Well, I also like when Ramona Flowers shows up, because all the awkward glances...
Yeah.
Oh, it's so amazing.
It's very well done.
Well, specifically, Wallace looking at Stacy's boyfriend. Again, a man who has glasses.
That's true.
And I just love how Scott's like his whole escape strategy is just leave.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's his only actual action.
And then acts like a creeper from backstage, which is great too, because like I like the far out shot, because like it's just them and you just see him in the background, like that hamster meme. Or Majima in the hallway in the Yakuza live action.
Just creeping around the corner.
Yeah, exactly. This is where Edgar Wright's a big fucking nerd. There's a couple times where I've noticed how big of a nerd he is, and I love it. The freak out and like the hovering of the faces and stuff. Or the superimposing of his face. That was pulled from Doctor Who.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. It looks beautiful, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. And also, I do enjoy the other band that we get to see in this, Crash and the Boys. Just pure, angsty, generic, dry humor.
It really sets the tone for what sort of venue this is supposed to be.
Yeah, this is your open mic show where just
anybody shows up.
Yeah, the local dipshits come to play something.
And you hope that you might hear something that resembles music once.
Yes. But also, Stacy stirring the pot between Ramona and Knives is great too, because she's like, Scott, I don't think she's malicious in it. I think what her goal is to try and force her brother to grow up a little bit.
I do too, but I also think she's kind of sick of his shit.
Yeah.
And so, like, at this point, does she care about the consequences? Not really.
Well, no, it's great too, because it kind of like starts building that little bit of tension that we'll see between them later on.
True.
But also, it's a great way to knock out Knives when Sexpal Bomb does show up.
Yeah, that's true.
Because she's like one of those animals that screams themselves to passing out.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, and it puts her with Ramona and everyone instead of down at the concert level.
Yes, yeah.
And also, they don't go anywhere because Patel shows up.
Like
can't even play their show.
Yeah.
And this is where he gets Scott as the best fighter in the province.
It does feel like maybe Scott was the one who started that rumor, but, who's to say?
I mean, he lives up to it.
He sure does. It's very impressive. It's also impressive because everyone who was doing a fighting role did get 2 months ahead of time fighting training with Jackie Chan's fighting group, which I wasn't aware he had started a company for that.
Oh, yeah. He has a whole... Jackie Chan has his own stunt agency, and I
knew about the stunt agency. I didn't realize they were training actors.
Okay.
I thought that he was just, like, hiring out stuntmen under his own name and, like, training them. I didn't realize that they were also training actors to do shit.
I can see it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
But I also love some other things in this fight. I love how emo Patel is, but also at the same time from such a Bollywood drama with his dancing and and it's not good singing either.
No, it's very much giving old school My Chemical Romance vibes, and I'm here for it.
Yeah. Also, them demon hipster chicks.
Mwah. Yes. Fact. No, this is a greatly stylized section of the movie, and I love it because we do have to like figure out a way to balance out each X and each different, like, stage of the movie to make sure that it's, like, very distinct and stylized differently. Because that's where Sucker Punch kind of, like, everything's styled the same throughout the whole movie, no matter who they're fighting, no matter what stage it is. This one, everybody gets a distinct style.
No, exactly. Like, Patel's is very mystical. Well, this is also where we get the first real bit of comic book action.
True.
He's very... How would I classify Patel? He's like a red mage, where he can use magic, but he's also kind of a fighter, but not the best in both. Yeah,
he's a little spread out points-wise.
Yeah, Scott is... What would Scott's class be? Pugilist.
Sure. Okay, yeah.
Kind of like a monk, where, that's all he does. He's only good with his fists. He's got no other skills.
That's very true. That's a fact.
Yeah, pugilist. Well, no, I don't know. Maybe monk.
Yeah, maybe monk, but, like, I don't know.
A loser monk.
Yeah, like, yeah. Yeah. When you dropped out of school at one point.
But also in the background of this, I love how everyone is confused as what's going on, besides Wallace.
Yes.
Because he's like, fight! Yes, I'm ready for this! Because Wallace went back and read that email.
Yes.
Or the letter that got delivered to them, because that's the thing is, Scott has glanced over everything. Like, he's been given multiple warnings. He just doesn't give a shit.
Yep. Oh, yeah. This is fantastic. I love the background audience, just, like, confusion on what is happening. Why are we doing this? I thought we were here for bands. Is this band?
I mean, kind of, I guess.
I mean, the bands are fighting.
No. Crash and the boys don't really fight. They get killed by Patel.
True, but maybe this is all a part of it?
Yeah.
It would be a dope, like, garage band concert.
Well, yeah. And also with Patel, like I did bring up, there's something on them that shows them what number they are.
That's true.
Patel has a single chevron on his shoulder.
He sure does.
And a first major deviation from the manga, he had 2 chevrons.
Oh my god.
But this is where the video game style shows through, because obviously Scott wins. Patel turns into coins and points. So he's only worth like $2.50 something cents.
It's honestly a really great way to really lean into the video game styling. Because before it's been there, but not enough to be really hammering home. Now it's getting almost in your face.
It has to be at this point.
Yeah,
though.
oh yeah.
And one little bit about the trivia of the Exes that I like. O'Malley's inspiration for the League of Evil Exes came from having to fight someone someday, and his wife dating 3 different Matthews, and he thought about a League of Matthews.
I do love that. A League of Matthews that you have to fight to win your wife's hand would be great.
Yeah, and he always wanted a middle number. 5 felt too easy, so the next one was 7.
Honestly, 7's a good number, especially by video game logic. You got kind of a simple rule of either 3s, 5s, or 7s for stuff, so...
Yeah, you got your progressively advancing bosses that force you to test different skills.
Or, in the video game, buy new shit. It's a lot of buying things in the video game.
Yeah. Yeah, Yakuza 0, invest in yourself.
As one should, really.
Yeah. But they quickly leave the venue as Knives is kind of coming to, realizing she missed the show.
Yeah, poor girl.
which makes Sex Bomb the winners of the band, or Battle of the Bands.
By default, my favorite way to win.
Yes. And now we have to get the bus scene and some exposition of the evil Exes. Destiny as the lights behind them are hearts.
It is very cute. Again, remember, this is all from Scott's point of view. So for Scott, this is his world. He's so excited for this opportunity to win her hand.
Yep, and his world is a sitcom because there's a Seinfeld transition to the apartment with Wallace.
That's true. That's very true.
And this is why I like Wallace too, is because he is very much that voice of reason where he's like, hey, I've got to put it down. You have to break up with Knives.
You have to actually break up with her.
Yes, he's trying to force Scott to do the good things, and he always seems to have Scott's back, where he's kind of leading him of here's what you need to do, here's the next thing. If you really want Ramona, follow my instructions, at least for the first couple. Yeah,
no, he really is trying to be a very good friend. Scott's just an ass.
Yeah, and also at the same time telling him you gotta leave at some point, man.
You do.
I gotta have sexy time.
At some point, you need to take a weekend off.
Yes.
At least go on a trip.
Ghost crash at Stacy's or something.
Seriously, anything. I don't care.
Yeah.
Take a vacation to the Bahamas for all I give a shit.
But this is also where we get the real introduction to X number 2. Lucas Lee in a movie trailer for some shitty action movie that's on Spike that, for those who don't know, Spike TV used to be this really, quote-unquote, high-octane channel for men.
It was. It had a lot of really dumb shows.
Mansers was amazing.
Yeah, I think that was one of the ones that had, a version of Pimp My Fill in the Blank here.
The best show on it was Most Extreme Elimination Challenge Ever.
True.
Which I learned, do you remember that show?
A little bit. It was not my favorite. I was much more into the Countdown Animals.
Do you remember Guy Ledouche, the news reporter?
Of course I do.
Horror writer and host of a couple Japanese horror shows.
I did not know that.
I was very surprised too. I loaded up a DVD and it's is that Guy Ledouche?
Yeah, it did not make that connection whatsoever.
Yeah, but he thought Spike TV would be the only place I would do a Lucas Lee marathon.
It'd also definitely be the only thing on in that house.
Yeah, and also fun fact, Lucas Lee is partially inspired by star of My Name is Earl, Jason Lee, who was a skater turned actor.
That tracks. That sounds about right.
Yeah. And also, it is very hard seeing Captain America in this movie.
That is true.
I like him so much better in this.
I can understand. I do understand. I agree.
I prefer when men have darker hair.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
But now it's breakup time with Knives in the music store. The love is so cheesy and it's disgustingly perfumey looking.
Yes. Oh my god, yes. It looks like it has flavor taste and I don't like that.
No, exactly. And also, Clash at Demon Head playing in the background is a good start to build up that something's not going to go well with Knives. This is going to be her and V. Adams.
Definitely.
Also a good way to put them in. And also, fun fact, Clash at Demon Head is an old NES game that I've seen in the wild once and did not buy.
Look at you.
I know.
What restraint?
I was poor back then.
What restraint?
But also, it's a good way to show their mental state after this, because immediately when Scott does say, let's break up, their world goes black.
Yes, it does.
And Knives stays black while Scott hops on the bus and progressively looks more and more pleased and relieved with himself.
He really does. Scott's the worst. She doesn't even, like, nicely break up with her either.
Forgot to bring up, she made her own Sex Bomb shirt that I guess, she made that shirt herself. Wong made that shirt.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it looks perfect for, like, that level of fan.
Yeah, and O'Malley did a bunch of the other shirts, too, the custom shirts that they ended up wearing.
I love it.
Oh, it's great.
I love it. What a piece of trophy.
DIY. That's what's great about this movie.
Fact. It's very real in that way.
Now Scott's back at practice. He's pleased as punch, as he's very excited about maybe you'll meet my new girlfriend.
So stupid.
Yeah, and we get the cool, like, or the little, not cool, but the little hair change of, like, they have to change it every day other than because they had to compress the story down and still keep it.
And honestly, like, no one really cared, I don't think. I think it's a fine explanation.
No, it's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it's simple, quick, and because Scott's barely at practice as he bails and continues the build-up of young Neil where he learns the Final Fantasy II bass line.
Ooh.
But again, showing he's not a great musician.
Yeah.
He even says, Neil can play my parts.
Oh, rude.
Yeah, again, building up that young Neil is becoming the next Scott Pilgrim or the bass player of the band, I guess.
Definitely at least the bass player, because let's be real, Scott's not adding a lot to the band anyway.
Well, and also the scene before the battle with Patel, Scott throws him the bass while he goes to fight instead of like throwing the bass off to the side or something.
True. Handoff.
But now we have Scott's date night with Ramona.
How sweet.
And the foot shot. Which...
Yep, the obligatory foot shot.
In the commentary, Winstead said, for Tarantino.
Well, at least we knew what we were doing.
She was also in Death Proof, by the way.
Okay, so that makes sense.
So, ties to Tarantino.
Yeah, she knew.
But still, now you know that her taking her boot off in the apartment is...
That's just for him. A little sneak peek just for him.
But also, I don't know why, like, now going back and watching Tarantino movies, why everyone was so surprised about his foot fetish.
I think because at the time, a lot of us saw it much more either symbolically or it wasn't, like, something in our minds. Like, I think recently the recognition of general content as actual fetish content has, like, been brought to people's forefront, and they realize, like, oh, this thing that I thought was just, like, harmless show or a harmless, like, trend, actually not for me. It's actually for
the director.
It's actually, well, in this case for the director, but, like, it's for someone with a specific taste, and I just didn't know the taste existed.
Not Edgar Wright. I don't know if he has a foot fetish. He might, but specifically for Tarantino.
The only footman in Hollywood, really.
Oh, no, there's probably some.
Oh, no, there's definitely more. He's just the one who is the most well-known.
No, exactly. But also, I like that Wallace, while he is the support line for Scott, this scene really shows that he's being forced to break, or Wallace is forcing him to take the next step where he leaves him alone with Ramona. And also, that smile she gives him, oh my god, that's just like, oh, Scott, you poor sweet boy, you are going to be defiled tonight.
Such a poor child of 22 years.
Yeah. But it's also a good scene, too, because while Wallace does abandon him and also says, hey, you're going to fumble this up in an hour. See you later.
You know, confidence, love it.
He did make garlic bread for her.
That is very sweet. This is honestly the most we've seen him do for someone.
Yeah. But I also think he's only made her garlic bread.
It might be the only thing he can cook.
I think it is. In the manga, he does a full meal. But
I know, but I think this version of Scott, only being able to cook cereal and garlic bread, honestly, that feels right.
Cook cereal. Interesting phrasing there.
Look at Scott. Look directly into this version of Scott's eyes, and you tell me that man regularly eats anything other than cereal.
I mean, he tried to steal Wallace's bacon.
Yeah, because he can't cook bacon.
Yeah.
He's probably not allowed in the kitchen.
Probably not. But what I also appreciate about this scene is that this is where Scott's past starts to come back to haunt him.
True.
Where he fumbles because of his haircut. His hair's getting a little too long.
Yep.
And also, it's bad, but it's great. There is a standstill or a stop frame, but it's not a stop frame. It's just Michael Cera
Buffering?
No, just staring at the screen. Well, yeah, buffering.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in real time, not like Frozen.
Yeah, no. He's just honestly doing exactly what you would think Scott would do. Just stare into space.
Yeah, he's such a little bitch.
Oh, yeah.
But because he fumbles it up, we're now forced to meet Lucas Lee.
Yep.
Yeah, which I love the introduction to Lucas Lee, where he's like this big-time quote-unquote star, where he breaks character to fight Scott, where his character doesn't change at all.
Yeah. Oh, it's fantastic.
It's also to show that the fights keep escalating because Ramona's dated some interesting people.
Yeah.
Even Patel's more interesting than Scott.
Literally all of her exes are more interesting than Scott. Literally all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Scott feels like she was trying something different, and it didn't work out.
Well, she's trying something different because he's different from what he's...
That's true.
She assumes he's different from what she's dated.
That's true.
But I also appreciate that Lucas Lee has 7 stunt doubles.
Yeah.
That get shorter and shorter behind him. So he's got his own league of Lucas Lees.
Yes. As he should.
Yeah. Also, his 2 is his tattoo.
Yeah.
It's like some Tibetan, like number 2, and also his logo is 2 L's, Lucas Lee.
Yeah. It's very good.
Yeah. But this is where, even though Scott gets his ass kicked by him quite a bit.
True.
He's able to beat the stunt doubles because the stunt doubles are not the all-powerful one. They're the doubles. They're there for the beat-em-up scenes.
Yep.
But what I like about him winning is that he only wins because he's, like, slightly smarter than Lucas Lee.
Yeah, not a lot. Just a little.
Yeah, just barely. And he preys on Lucas Lee, always trying to impress the ladies.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And has him grind to his death.
Yeah, yep.
Great battle all around.
It's a lot of fun. The fights are starting to get more and more fun to watch, and you start looking forward to Scott having to battle the next ex.
Exactly. And we find out Ramona's bailed, and Scott's back home with Wallace.
Much to Wallace's disappointment.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's an important scene because we got the 8 magnet again, showing that still might be the 8th evil X. The kisses weren't just kisses.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. He might be in lesbians with her.
Yeah.
That's still one of my favorite lines.
It's very good.
Telling friends, I'm in lesbian with you.
Yeah. So sweet.
But it's also a way to like show that Scott is actually affected by Ramona. Like her bailing on him kind of hurt him.
Yeah, like for once he actually cares.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But shit's not going well because Envy calls.
Oh my god.
And I love how stylistically they do this call where it feels like it's some noir detective movie.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's a good way to piss off Scott too because he goes on to like go do something. I forget what he did. He leaves the house.
Yeah.
But it's a good way to show that there's more X's on the way. There's 5 yellow and 2 white signs above him.
Yep.
And he gets to fight the alley ninja that he punches in the boob.
You know what? Sure. Why not punch in boob?
Yeah.
If you're getting attacked, punch wherever you can. Don't discriminate.
True.
Yeah. Sometimes the boob's the only option.
Scott's a gentleman.
No, but he would like to think he is.
Yeah, but I also appreciate, because this is the part where we start to see the speech getting redacted.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, well, just a little bit of nerdiness in case, like, the last couple scenes were too normal for you.
Mm-hmm.
But this is where we see Scott go to bum coffee off of his sister, one of the cheaper things out there. He goes there...
I was going to say coffee of all things.
Well, no, I love it because I don't think they say it specifically in the movie, but the reason he goes to get coffee when his sister's working is because his sister gets 1 free cup of coffee while she works.
And he's taking her free coffee.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So no wonder
that
explains why his sister's such a bitch to him sometimes.
Of course! She'd be, he probably does this like 4 times a week. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she probably never gets her free coffee.
Or she does, they just give him, like, the shitty stuff.
This is like the old coffee that they were, like, gonna pour out anyway?
Maybe.
Yeah, I hope so.
And fun little trivia, Stacy's name tag is actually O'Malley's sister when she worked at the same coffee shop.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah.
That's a cute little nod.
But this is also where we find out that Scott hasn't probably been the best with the ladies in the past because
Probably.
No, we know.
We know.
Jules is laying into him about his past exes and why she didn't want him to meet Ramona is because he always does something that ruins the relationship and probably ruins the friendship with Jules.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And then Envy shows up.
Yep.
And I love how hard they made her portrayal. She's trying so hard to be aloof.
Yeah.
And just...
It's fun.
It is.
It's
but,
fun.
Yeah, it's just like it's that one friend. It's that one friend you had in high school, or that person you knew in high school, who went somewhere to make it big, and they've barely made it big. Like they're probably big names in like really their hometown still. Yeah, no, they left to go become an actor, and like now they do commercials, which is still important and cool, but like they will tell you they're an actor. Technically accurate. And you're like, yeah, I guess, and they're like, well, you've never been in anything. You're like, okay, you are correct, but we didn't have the same goals. Yeah. Also forgot to bring up that Ramona's here. Of course. And also, Envy, played by Brie Larson, who is the second future Marvel star that has been in this movie. But at this point, who hasn't been in a Marvel movie? Michael Cera. That's, well, honestly, maybe for the best. Winstead. Yeah. Wong hasn't. Wong's been in the Void, though. I would say we're getting close. That one... The Void is nowhere near. No, I know, but I do think, like, out of everyone's listed so far, there's a few that I'm like, it makes sense for them not to have been in a Marvel movie yet. And then there's a few where I'm like, if the right Marvel movie came along, I could see it. I don't think people want to be in Marvel movies anymore. Probably not, but I hear the paycheck's good, so... But back to sleeping with the gays and dealing with Scott's issues. Yeah, Scott really just living the life, isn't he? Yeah, I love other Scott in this where he wants nothing to do with Scott. That's true. I do too. Yeah, and fun little fact I get to bring up about this scene, and I get to bring up another movie that I've brought up relatively recently. Okay. The SARS shirt that Scott's wearing isn't a reference to the horrible disease that ravaged Canada around that time. You sure? Yes. No, it is inspired by the tribe Sarin from Tokyo Tribe. Of course. O'Malley even states it. Of course it is. Of course it is. I just love when I get to bring that one up. True. Yeah. But it's also the way to build up forcing Scott to take his hand of like, you can be the only straight man in a bed full of gay men for so long. And they keep building it up as Wallace has 2 men this time. And I think the last time there's 4 gay men and then Scott. And it's very clear that Wallace is trying to get Scott to be uncomfortable and fucking leave. Take a fucking hint. And Scott's just so oblivious. Oh yeah. No. He's like, no, if you want to have people over, it doesn't bother me. It's like, yeah, I know, it bothers me. No, exactly. And other Scott who doesn't want you here. This is true, other Scott would also like you to leave. Yeah, and we get a little bit more band practice, which is a nice way to show Knives' obsession and also build up that, hey, Envy's Clash at Demon Head has told us you're gonna open for us, and we're gonna take it because we're a band and we want to make it big, guys, right? Yeah, I mean, it's a good way to get everything moving again. Yeah, I love the panicky energy that Steven Stills has this whole time. That's true. But also building up Knives' stock, when he says, we need stalkers, and then Knives is just out the window. It's ready to be that person. Paired with the Zelda Discovery chime. Yeah, it is. It's a lot of Zelda in this movie, honestly. That's the end of it. I know, but well, the hearts, maybe, yeah. A little bit. And I think there might be, in lower health, that might be the Zelda heart ding. Maybe. Bing, 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 bing. I think you're right. I've been playing Zelda recently, and it's haunting my memory, that bing, bing fucking noise, because I'm bad at Zelda. I've been playing Metroid, and I've had the whoop, 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 whoop. Yeah, Brian's also playing Metroid right now, and it's all I hear. Metroid Fusion for GBA? No, we have one of the old ones we're playing. I can't remember which one. No. He's actually fairly good, so I don't have to hear it nearly as much as I get to listen to Bing Bing when I play Zelda. I'm very bad at Zelda. Beautiful. But this is also a good way to bring Knives back into the story where she's not just some out-of-place character, because we don't get the fight with her and Ramona in the library. Yeah, that's true. But it's her way to see Ramona and also show that she's not taking it so well, where she does I'm not like other girls and I dye my hair, one part of my hair one color. It's not as bad as what I've seen. I saw another TikTok or a reel or something of someone complaining that I guess that's a stereotype amongst Asian roles. Or Asian female roles where it's like, I'm different from the other girls, and they've got like one purple streak.
I think it was the very early 2000s.
I think it's still a thing.
It definitely is, but I think a lot of it ends up being like a combo move to also be with like a nerdy person, because it was also an emo thing for sure in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And so like having those double things collide, like, it's a little bit
much nowadays.
I think so, but I think for Scott Pilgrim, like, it's pretty obvious that like everyone in this universe shops heavily at Hot Topic, so like it does fit.
Yeah, but it's a good way to show that she's mimicking, trying to get Scott back, and like, hey, look, I look like I look kind of like the one you're with now.
Yeah, despite the fact that you're probably guessing that it's a clip-on piece of hair extension.
Yeah, she and young Neil are perfect for each other.
They really are.
And also when they're back at the bar, O'Malley and his wife are at the bar very briefly. Which, this is where Knives is trying to be, so, look at me, Scott, I've moved on already. And I've moved on to Micro Scott, young Neil.
So subtle.
So subtle. And now we get to see Clash at Demon Head play, which, a great song too.
True. Very true.
And we meet the third ex, Todd Ingram.
This is it. Yep. And at this point, like, we are ready to, like, really get the X battles rolling, because we enjoyed this last one a lot. We feel like we've got the pace started.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, we also know that we're going to get a different style each time now, too. So it's kind of fun to be like, okay, well, what's the next one look like? What's his gig?
It's an awkward back room or green room hangout time.
Yep.
Which Todd is such a tool in this.
Yeah.
And on top of that, he is not Marvel. He is DC superhero-dom.
Of course he is.
He is Superman in 2006's Superman Returns, and he is Adam in the Flash series.
Yep. Yes, he is.
Yeah. And also what makes him a dick, too, and sets him apart as a bad guy from Scott, is he punches the color out of Knives' hair.
That's true, he does. That's true.
He's a real dickhead.
My God, how could he?
The dickhead with vegan powers.
The vegan power thing is a little funny.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's only, like, maybe the joke has increased in time.
As vegans become more and more insufferable.
But not even that, but just, like, because I think in 2010, when this, like, came out, I think a lot of people thought that, like, this style of, like, the obnoxious vegan joke would have, like, run its course and be, like, done. And instead, like, it has just continued to escalate in, like, trend and, like, people still using it.
Well, and the writing of it, too, makes it sound so much more pretentious because he's like...
That's his superpower.
Well, no, like, someone says, like, oh, what about this person? They're vegan. Maybe lacto-ovo-vegetarian, but not vegan.
Yeah, like, he's the only one who truly understands. And the thing that's really funny is, like, the movie, at the time that it came out, like, was not even taking... Like, the hyper-veganism has gone so much farther than this movie even knew it could go, and I think that's where the true joy in this joke lasting as long as it has comes from. Because, like, I bet you Todd, the super vegan, would be appalled to learn where his genes come from and that an animal has once touched them.
Yeah.
But, like, he hasn't reached that level of super vegan yet, because the world hasn't evolved with Todd.
Well, no, Todd's just stupid.
Todd is also stupid. Well, that's true. As long as Todd's the best, it doesn't matter.
He's not even the best, though.
Todd would like to be the best. He's not, but he would like to think he is.
Yeah. I do like that Ramona's trying to make a clean break from all this. She's just like, I'm gonna leave, guys.
I do appreciate that she's like, damn, again. I would really like to not have to do this every time.
Well, in amplifying the fights, Todd is beating the absolute shit out of Scott.
True. It's that vegan superpower, man.
Yeah.
It's not really. It's just that Scott sucks.
No. I mean, we've seen Scott's actually good for his area.
That's true.
But he's fighting people not from his province. Is that a commentary that Canadians are weak, maple-fueled people?
I don't think so. I think it's more of just, like, Scott is very much, like, was good for the neighborhood he was in, and, like, maybe didn't, like, really think about, like, someone who has dated bigger than his pool.
Yeah. That's actually a really good way to put it.
Like, it's a bit like as Scott is leaving his high school and his small town and realizing that he is not the hot shit no more. Even though he wasn't ever really hot shit.
Oh, he was the hot shit. You kidding me?
Yeah, well,
He fought 1,000 guys to get Kim Pines.
This is true. But now he's out in the real world where there's a lot bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, movie stars and bigger bands.
Exactly.
And even then, they show that Todd is much better at bass than Scott, where Todd is playing some impressive stuff.
I would say a lot of people are better at bass than Scott.
Or Scott is just playing Final Fantasy 2.
Yeah, it feels... all 4 notes.
There's more. Bump, 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 bump.
4 notes.
No, it goes after that. I'm not good at...
No. Just 4 individual notes, not like each note separately.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah.
He only knows the intro of it, too.
He does. He doesn't even know the whole thing.
But that's the thing is, technically Todd is better, but Scott is definitely more punk.
Scott at least wants it more.
Yeah. And they're in different shirts. Scott has 0 and Todd has 3. Very obvious.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. But I do love that how Scott wins is because he is slightly smarter, but also dumb at the same time and just really fucking lucky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, with the whole putting half and half in both, and then I thought of both half and half in both of them.
Yeah.
Or just one of them.
Yep.
Yeah. But the vegan police are great too.
This is very funny.
Just taking away his powers because Todd's an idiot and doesn't realize that he's broken it twice already.
Yeah, that he's, it's a very silly scene.
No, it is. Because he loses his power as his hair falls down.
No!
Those effects have aged pretty poorly, but I don't think there would have been any other way to do it.
I don't think they looked good when it came out. I think it just always looked a little silly.
Yeah. Which also, Scott headbutts him to death, which it shows that he can move on from Envy Adams. He's not hung up on them anymore.
True.
But my favorite bit of that is while everyone's kind of there's slow-mo of shit happening, the vegan cops in the background are like, fuck yeah, and buddy cop high-five each other.
Yes, I do appreciate that sometimes some people in this world seem to be enjoying whatever is happening.
Yeah, well that's what's great is there's all that little comedy in the background that can easily be missed, I think.
I do think that especially for a cult movie, that is something that a lot of people look for is how rewatchable is this? Mm-hmm. And having extra stuff in the background to find, having lots of Easter eggs, having lots of cameos, it does help. Yeah,
even Todd, who could have flown through the walls, opens the door to get to Scott.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, just little side humors, deviate the expectation of what they're gonna do.
True.
But now it's time for the after party with the 4 above the door. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. They're bringing young Neil along as a quote-unquote member now.
Well, almost like Scott's been replaced.
Yeah, and they're going through the lives or the relationships of Scott very briefly as Kim gives him a very dirty look and Knives looks very longingly at him.
Poor Knives. She'll get over it eventually, I hope.
Yeah, all about finding yourselves.
It is, yeah.
But everything's interrupted by X number 4 because it's going to vamp up from here.
It does, thankfully, because we're a little slow-paced.
Roxy Richter, played by Mae Whitman, who, while not in Marvel, was the voice of Yuffie Kisarage in Kingdom Hearts. Yep. As well as, if you remember this, Little Susie and Johnny Bravo.
I do remember Little Susie. She's come so far.
Yeah, just face behind the voices.
True.
And her fight scene is great, too.
Oh, yeah, it's fantastic.
I love all the really dumb lesbian jokes.
Yes.
I'm bi-furious.
They are just shoved into the movie.
You're just a has-been.
No, they are so shoehorned into the movie that, and it doesn't stop, so it ends up being funnier than I think if they just did one.
Oh, yeah. Well, it also works great, too, because the bisexual phase was done as a cliche.
It was.
Also, she has 4 rips in her tights, if you're trying to figure out what number what number symbolized her.
Yep.
And also, Scott's absolute unwillingness to fight a woman, but his floppy arms as Ramona's using him to fight is funny.
It is.
This, I guess, was Edgar Wright's homage to the golden days of Golden Harvest Kung Fu movies.
I can see it.
It's not Jackie Chan because there's not really props, it's weapons and
just physical
basic kung fu.
Yeah, no, it's still a fun set to watch, even without the stupid jokes.
Jackie Chan
It is.
But not with props.
Makes sense, though, since, the Jackie Chan company trained everybody.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's the thing. So, with this fight too,
Mm-hmm.
this is the part where they really brought up that everything was planned around what the actors could do.
Mm-hmm.
Winstead could really do that axe kick, like get her leg that high up and bring it down.
Which is crazy.
And so could Richter. She could bring her leg up. And that,
So flexible.
When she hasn't held up for like a minute.
It's absolutely silly.
Someone's holding it.
Of course.
But, yeah.
Of course, because cramps. But also, like, very impressive.
No, exactly. Well, it also sets up that Ramona can't fight the battles for Scott.
No, Scott does have to be the one doing it,
Mhm.
but maybe not as willingly as we thought.
No, not at all. And even then, like, the way he wins is so dumb, too. It's her...
Yes.
He orgasms the lesbian to death.
Which is stupid, but I guess whatever works.
But also, it's got that funny joke in it, too, that you'll never be able to do this to her.
Yeah, it is stupid.
Yeah, low blow, but...
A little bit, but it's Scott Pilgrim and it's from 2010. We expect little.
Yeah.
I mean, we just got bombarded by jokes that were all so bad.
Mm-hmm. And even other dumb jokes, too, come after this, where Scott's like, everyone saw us airing our sexy laundry.
Yes, and all of it is just so silly, so goofy.
Again, Scott's mind is that, hey, lesbians are sexy, and his girlfriend was one at one point.
Yeah, Scott doesn't seem to have a great grasp on the world around him.
Well, no, because he's also taking out his frustrations on Ramona that, hey, I'm just another ex waiting to happen, I guess.
Yeah, he could have seen his own writing on the wall, but, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is also why he's potentially, or he's angry afterwards, because he's like, I just want to get this over with. That, because Ramona storms out on him again, deservedly this time.
I think so.
And, which is why he's angry at band practice, and his shirt is 4.5, because he's defeated 4, and he could be potentially the next one.
You never know.
Mm-hmm. And also, this is the part where the movie heavily, heavily deviates.
Yes.
And this is because, one, the books hadn't been finished yet.
True.
And also, Transformers and Iron Man had come out by this point, and Wright didn't want everyone to say that this was a ripoff with the robots that the twins usually control.
And I can see why. I mean, you do have to remember that this is when Transformers was actually, like, popular.
Yeah,
and not
we only had the one.
We did, and everyone actually thought it was good when it came out.
Still pretty decent.
It is. I do think the franchise has, like, degraded it over time.
It degraded it real quick.
Yes.
I moved. No, actually, no. The second one was out because I watched the second one at a friend's basement when I first moved back to the States, and that's one of the first movies where I'm watching, and I'm like, what is this? This is not good at all.
Yes, the second one, I think people started to be like, whoa, okay, this isn't as good. But, the first one was so good, and they're going to make more, was definitely the mindset for a lot. It hadn't degraded to the point of, like, no one even noticing when a new one comes out.
Yeah, no, exactly. And also, I guess the two main actors for the twins didn't know enough English, so they had to be directed visually, which is kind of cool for like this type of scene to come out. I guess they were radio DJs in Japan and were famous.
That's cool.
Like to the point where they got swarmed by tourists because...
Yeah, good for them.
Yeah. But I also love that this whole thing that we've been building up, this Battle of the Bands, is 100% Gideon's doing.
Yeah.
From just the get-go of them entering the first Battle of the Bands with Crash and the boys.
That's true, yeah. The whole evil mastermind feel.
Mm-hmm. But Gideon is here too.
No, Gideon, no.
The logos on his shirts make the 7s, by the way.
That makes sense.
And an upside-down Triforce.
Adorable. So much Zelda.
Yeah, he's the anti-Zelda.
Yeah.
He's like the... Oh, because his name is too close to Ganon, isn't it?
It's close. It's close.
It starts and ends.
It's close. I mean, no one's going to be naming their actual child Ganon, so...
I don't know in this day and age.
I mean, true, but also, like, you got so many other options.
The weebs are naming their kids after anime characters.
That's fine. Name them after whatever you want, but Ganon? Really? The
Sasuke
Pigman?
Smith? Well, that actually kind of works.
That does kind of work.
Sasuke Johnson?
Still kind of works.
No.
Sauce for short.
That's something you name your cat. This is my cat Sauce, short for Sasuke?
Wrong. You name your cat an old man name like George.
No.
Or Philip.
I have found something new that to name your cat, you give them like you say their first name, and then you give them a really long obnoxious title as their official name.
Yeah, that's what breeders do. Or, like, people doing show animals.
No, I'm talking like Charlie Chaplin, Garter of the Throne of Defecation.
You need to look into, like, professional breeding and showing, because they have the longest, stupidest names, because they name them after all of their ancestors, too. So if their ancestors' names were Pancake Syrup Waffles the 7th, then their name is, like, Pancake Syrup Waffles Gideon Avocado.
Fascinating.
It's a mess, but they're fantastic names.
I get it. I mean, I have 2 middle names because of my grandfathers, and
There you go. You can enter cat shows.
well, and one of them is partially named after the Red Baron because his father named his sons after German warriors.
Okay. Well, you know, pizza's good, I guess.
I hate you so much. But what I do like about this bit of the twins is Gideon has to put the 2 together.
Yeah.
And their numbering is from Stupid Bracelets.
It is. It is.
And also there's a little nerdy nod in this.
Okay.
Where for them to try and overpower, they have to turn their amps up to 11. Which is a multi-layered fucking nerdy reference. One, it's Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
And also it's their 2 numbers added together.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, exactly. Also, they're Double Dragons, so there's references to the Double Dragon video game.
Of course there is. I expect no less.
Which, if you get a chance, the Double Dragon movie is... it is... Oh, it's awful, but great.
Perfect. My favorite.
And honestly, so this is the part where I really got pissed off with the movie when I first watched it. Because I'm like, this is such a dumb scene. And then you start thinking about, okay, this is all in Scott's head. They're not actually, like, fighting with these Super Saiyan spirits.
Yes, this is where it does become a little convoluted. Because, yeah, the director did say, like, this is all from Scott's point of view, and a lot of the video game and, like, comic book stuff is just how Scott sees the world around him and himself. But also, clearly other people see it because they react to it. So, like, the lines of reality are blurred, but it does mean for a fun movie. Yeah,
no, it does. Especially when, like, when you're not reading too hard into it, you're not being that... stick up the ass, the book was better, which there's something for that later.
There is, of course.
But honestly, I do enjoy it. It makes the Battle of the Bands visually interesting instead of just 2 people playing against each other the whole time.
It would have been a little funny if we had incorporated a little bit of maybe like the video game Rock Band or Guitar Hero, just a wee bit more, but you know.
There's a nod in there, I'll bring that up.
There is.
But it's also a good way to show that Scott is taking full action of everything. He's not having to have Wallace tell him what to do.
True, he's not being puppeted anymore.
No, he's doing this all because he wants Ramona back. He's just trying to get through it all.
Yeah.
And they do eventually beat him, which he gets a life and growing up.
Oh boy.
The band isn't his goal and the focus.
Yeah.
Which I do like the bit where he runs into Knives in her incognito mode. Because she's not trying to be Kim. She's not trying to be Ramona. She's just Knives.
Yep.
And is a potential path that he could have taken.
That's true. He could have.
It's very sweet and simple. And it shows that she also wasn't there just for Scott anymore. She was there to see Sex Bomb because she liked them.
Yeah. Yep. She's growing as a person without us having to watch her.
Exactly. And all this so that way Ramona can dump Scott.
You know, I get it though, Ramona. I see it.
Oh, it's a very nice little with the Rolling Stones Under My Thumb playing on the radio in the background. Nice little touch.
It is.
But this is where Scott shows up or stands up for his principles and that he's truly not going to sign for some asshole who just stole his girlfriend.
He does have a point.
Yeah, but I also do respect that Sex Bomb sells out that they're like, hey, this is our deal.
I was going to say, at this point, they've already made it pretty clear that, like, them and Scott aren't working out super great. We've already found a new bass player.
Yeah, young Neil takes over.
He's doing great. We're just going to stick with him. Scott can do whatever he wants. We would like to be famous.
Exactly. And that Rock Band shirt that he's wearing is because O'Malley wrote in his author's corner that he was asking what was the point of Rock Band. So the studio sent him a copy and it changed his mind. So he added the shirt as a tribute to.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah. It's fun. I mean, I get it.
I get it. Because especially with how heavy-handed the references are everywhere else in this, it's nice to see a little bit of a nod to, like, what would have been the easier way for incorporating a video game here.
No, it's a simple one, too. Like, at the time, everyone was playing Rock Band or Guitar Hero.
Oh, yeah, no, they were hugely popular.
No, exactly. But it's also bringing Scott down to ground zero, like 100%. He doesn't have his girl. He doesn't have his band, and by extension, his friend group, as far as we know it.
Yeah, no, it's been made very clear that his roommate would really like it if he maybe moved out.
No, exactly. And then his sister's there kind of to comfort him, not really.
But he's been stealing coffee from her for arguably a while, so she's not super pleased with him anyway.
No, but she's still a supportive sister.
She is. She's there for her stupid brother.
Yeah, Scott sees Wallace in action. But this is all forcing him to move on because Scott doesn't have a home anymore because Wallace is like, I'm gonna have to get you to leave.
Yeah, it's time. It's time.
Yeah. But this is where Scott's like, oh, okay, it's Gideon calls him because this is where he has to ramp up the end. So, like, we can't spend another, like, I think it's like a year or two in the manga where Scott is trying to find himself, and
we need this to progress a little quicker than that.
Yeah. And this is the one part where I do wish that this movie had been 2 parts.
I can understand.
Where they had spent some time really building up Ramona, and the twins arc is like, because like that's the whole point of the 5th volume, is so that way we can really build up Ramona and learn more about her, where Scott's more of a background character in that volume. Sure. And then Scott actually like learning and doing shit instead of like Gideon's like, come to the Chaos Theater. I've got a show for you, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but it does work as far as a movie-based, like solely movie thing. It does work, and it helps with the pacing, because otherwise we would be spending forever trying to pity Party Scott.
Yes, but I also love, and this is why I love some of Wright's cutting and editing, is the everything getting ready to go fast, like Shaun of the Dead, and then stopping for a small, mundane little tying of his shoe. Yep.
Gotta make sure it's on there. Don't want to trip.
We're on to Chaos Theater, which is a reference to Earthbound, by the way.
Of course.
Yeah. I do dig the elevator scene where it's just like, there's such a cool club of, oh, we gotta have a password. Whatever. Yeah. Cool. And even,
it's good.
Oh, yeah. It's awesome. And when he gets down there, Sex Bomb is playing a song called Having No Fun.
Very good.
And some dude, and it's the dude who knows everything. His line in the background is, the first album was much better than the first one.
You know what? I understand what he means entirely.
Yeah. And also, it's such a good fight, too. I mean, Scott really is no longer Zero.
True.
This is where it's truly on the verge of winning or becoming an X.
Yep. Oh, yeah, definitely. The stakes feel higher.
And another nod to Kill Bill. The reason this theater clears out is because budgetary reasons.
Good.
Like what they did in Kill Bill in the sushi house or dance club. I can't remember what the restaurant in Kill Bill is. Whatever.
Yeah.
But the other thing too is, I think I kind of understand it now, where every one of these movies they're fighting with a katana. Yeah. It has to be a katana. It's so cheesy.
It has to be. No, it's also the nerdiest choice. Like. No. It has to be.
Yeah, it's one of the few things that I am proud of being a nerd, that I don't own a katana.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
I'm very proud of you.
Thank you. It surprises people still.
It does. Yeah, it does.
Yeah, but this is also where we get the build up between the kind of the conclusion to Knives and Ramona's relationship, where they have their little bit of a spat. I wouldn't even call it a fight. No. She swings her hammer. Knives has her knives.
Yeah, well, like one does.
Yeah, really cheesy fighting talk, and Scott coming clean, which it slows down the fight a little bit, but I think it's really important just to like really wrap up Ramona, Knives, and Scott's like triangle.
Especially neatly. For Knives. Especially Knives.
Yeah, and really show that Scott wasn't a good guy early on.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Arguably hasn't evolved that far.
He kind of has.
A little bit. This is the most growth ever for Scott.
He said no to the Coke Zero. He's advanced enough.
He is advanced some.
A bit. But now he's dead because Gideon takes the chance to sneak up on him and...
dirty bastard.
Yeah. And Dream and Ramona explaining the reasons to leave and the evil chip that she had. Which, the chip and the evil twins were from O'Malley's original notes that were not used. So
nice.
That's why I appreciate Wright's adaptation of that, is they used O'Malley's notes. And I think they described it specifically as Scott taking a left here and when he should have taken a right.
Yeah. And I like it. I think it's fun. I don't really care too much that, like, the deviation happens, because it does give me something else to enjoy.
No, it's really nice. And I appreciate O'Malley's deviation, or reason why he deviated from the twins battle is because he didn't want to draw that many amplifiers.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
I understand the whole reasoning behind not wanting to draw something so you change the story.
Mm-hmm. And to show how much of a big fucking nerd Edgar Wright is.
Mm-hmm.
The dream that he's having and the layering of the faces over everyone
Mm-hmm.
was pulled from fucking Naruto.
Of course it was. Look at it.
Which was very popular at the time.
It's still, it's still one of the big animes.
We were in the era of the big three, Naruto, Bleach, and One Piece.
Those were kind of your options, really.
I mean, Death Note, Scott Pilgrim versus the World. I had just moved to the States. I had so much options back then.
Yeah, no, this was when you could get a hold of stuff.
Still get Neon Genesis Evangelion in print.
That's true. That's true. The options were greater than they had been in ages.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, when you went to the store, Naruto was kind of the only thing merch-wise to buy.
Yeah. Yeah. But also, Scott wakes up. He gets his life. He's leveled up. He earned self-respect.
Good for him.
Redoing the whole scene of getting to the Chaos Theater.
Yeah.
The guy who knows everything. I love that Edgar Wright knew how people would react.
Yeah.
And the nerdy guy says something different, which again, I like the way of like, if you took a left here and I took a right here, if Scott had stayed dead, what would have happened?
True.
But this guy with being revived it's just the comic is better than the movie.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's a good line.
Yeah. Also, we get that Scott is fully moving on. Young Neil is upgraded to Neil. He's fully done with Sex Bomb. They're better without him.
Yep. It's time for everyone to move on.
Yeah, Graves gets his own ninja sword.
Good for them.
And the whole reason there's a second fight is because in a lot of video games, the final boss has 2 phases. Or you have to fight them twice.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. But it turns out they're stronger together.
What? Who would have known?
Yeah, shocking.
Not definitely the first part of this movie.
Nope. And Nega Scott shows up. I still think the Nega Scott bit is really weak.
I do too, but I get where they were going with it. Like, it definitely ties back to Wright's other works and his, like, humor style. So, like, I get it.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, that's such an important... And I sound like the goddamn comic book nerds.
Yeah, yeah.
I do think that they should have just left Nega Scott out altogether in this one. It didn't work very well because it only shows up, like, twice.
I agree, but I see why he's there, for fan, like, being like, oh, but what about, like, at least he's addressed. And I also think that for this movie, for this version of Scott, the growth and, like, self-discovery is a different level than the books were. And I think by having him kind of cop out with the end here kind of shows that, like, yeah, look, there's room for more growth and improvement, but ain't nobody got time for that in this movie, so we're gonna end here. Yeah,
if maybe he had framed it as Nega Scott being the potential Evil X, I think it would have worked a bit better.
I can see that, sure.
Yeah, or worked it into one of the fights a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah.
But Ramona's trying to bail.
Yeah, well, goodbye.
But it's not happening. Scott gets his manic pixie dream girl.
Good for him.
But I also think what's nice about this too is that Knives has to push him towards it. Where she has a positive end where she's like, I was too good for you.
Yeah.
And she was.
Yeah, she was. 100%. Throughout the whole thing. Even when she was being the weird creeper ex.
Yeah.
I would argue she still was a class act above him.
Oh, 100%. 100%. And that's why I think Knives is such a good character in this movie, is because she has a little mini growth arc that makes you care for her.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like Wells Stevens.
Yeah.
Whose whole goal is to sell out. Even young Neil gets a little bit of a story. Kim gets the short end of the staff on this movie.
I would agree. Yeah.
She has a big part in the 6th volume.
Makes sense. But yeah, we've only got time for so many characters, really.
Yeah, and honestly, it's the better of the endings that they said. The original ending was Knives and Ramona, or Scott ends up with Knives and Ramona goes off to fucking Prague.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it, but it's not as satisfying for sure.
Well, then they changed it because it felt disempowered Knives.
I would agree. I think Knives is too good for him, and she needs to find someone better.
Yeah, and the other potential was Scott ends up with no one, and that ending cheated the audience, and...
It does, but it does feel the most accurate to Scott.
Resetting to day one is the best. It's a nice way to bookend their relationship of their first real their first real date was through that portal.
Yeah, and I think it does work, and it does give everyone, like, honestly, the most compromise for an ending for this movie.
No, exactly. And Bill Pope said it, that the women are the heart of the movie, and that is 100%. Scott's just the dipshit vehicle to make them shine.
Honestly, Scott would have not changed at all if it hadn't been for them. Literally forcing him to change.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
honestly, going back on this, I'm partially surprised that this movie bombed.
I'm not. And I say that because I did not read the books until almost 10 years after this movie came out.
Okay.
I didn't know about the books. I kind of knew about, like, the art style. Like, I knew Scott Pilgrim existed. I kind of knew about the video game because I had a friend who was kind of into it, but, like, we weren't Scott Pilgrim fans.
Okay.
We didn't know about it beforehand. We enjoyed the movie, but it didn't impact us. We weren't wowed by it. We enjoyed it once, but we weren't going to rewatch it. Nobody I knew owned it. Like,
yeah, well, maybe it had such a bigger impact on me because I was like 2 years younger than Scott in the movie.
I also think it depends on what sort of nerd you are. Because this movie hits home for a lot of people who enjoy references. They enjoy the background stuff. They like finding it for themselves in the movie. And our friend base wasn't, at the time, into that sort of nerdom. We were into a much more, like, behind-the-scenes makings. We wanted to know, like, the process. We were into, like, oh, did you know about there being 3 types of jaw, like, sharks that they made? Like, we were into the, like, effects of the Titanic. We were into that sort of nerdom.
Craft nerds.
We were craft nerds. And, like, we had nerdy stuff that we were into. We definitely had animes. We definitely were into mangas of certain kinds. But it followed that same trend of, like, oh, well, we weren't into the big 3 for the most part. We didn't get into the big 3 until after they were already dead, pretty much.
Oh, okay. Yeah, see, and that's the other thing with me, too, is I learned to draw through manga and heavily Bleach, Naruto, Death Note. And those were my big ones.
And we were over here reading, like, Rurouni Kenshin. So, like, we were there. We were also in the nerd fandom, but we were on a different, like, travel path for our friend group. And so we enjoyed Scott Pilgrim. We got a lot of the, like, references and comments and stuff. But we weren't giant Zelda fans. We weren't giant, like, the bands who played, we didn't realize who they were until, like, way later. So, like, a lot of the stuff that for a cult fandom, like, why they love it, I totally get it now. But at the time, I see why critics weren't a big fan. This was a movie made for a specific type of fan, by a specific type of fan. And that's fantastic, but the critics had a lot to say about, like, they weren't a big fan of the use of the comic book styling. They weren't a big fan of the in-your-face references, and they weren't a big fan of the, like, overall story arc that was happening, regardless of book. But I don't think it was for them. And I think that proves it, because, like, this movie bombed. This movie did not make its money back.
No, I know. And I think, if I remember right, the show Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, they make fun of that as well.
They sure do. Show. Because now people do know about Scott Pilgrim. That's why the show is doing as well as it, like, as it has. That's why the books did as well as they have. Is, like, by the time the movie, like, a lot of people, this was their introduction to Scott Pilgrim. And if this was your thing, you really got into it.
Yeah, I think you would like his next series second, or his next book second, well, graphic novel. Yeah. Second's a lot better. I'm not sure if you'd like Into the Sea.
Yeah, it's not that I dislike it, it's just not normally what I'm, like, drawn to. I wouldn't have gone out of my way to, like, do a whole bunch of looking into it. I wouldn't have gone out of my way to read it. If it was at my library and I had read everything else on the shelf, sure, I would have picked it up. I don't dislike it, but I can see why it had to wait until it came to, like, the home media to really make an impact, because it's not that it's a bad movie, it's just not going to impact everyone the same way.
Yeah, I get that. I don't know. My opinions have evolved with this because I rewatched it a couple years ago just because I was curious to see how well it stood up again.
Sure.
Because I bought it even though I wasn't a huge fan of it when it first came out because that's how big of a Scott Pilgrim nerd I was. It's like, I'm going to buy it even though I don't like how the movie went.
Yeah.
And I do definitely have to say my mind has changed. I think they did a very good job in making it something unique and different. It's very much the same approach to Akira, where if you like one over the other, that's fine. You still have that one over the other.
Oh, yeah. Having two different things, I think now people are starting to realize isn't necessarily a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
Having a variation, having a different story with the same characters, I think people are actually starting to enjoy. I think people get frustrated when they originally got told, like, this is going to be the thing you already know, and it wasn't.
No, exactly. And I guess I have a question on this. So I know a lot of people say Speed Racer is the best live-action adaptation.
Yeah.
I am kind of leaning, I think Scott Pilgrim is better. Because, like, I still get, don't get me wrong, Speed Racer is still great.
Sure.
I just think Scott Pilgrim did the best job of capturing the spirit of it. I think that's what matters most for me, is that rewatching it, it still has that, regardless of the changes, it's still the same spirit that Scott Pilgrim had.
I agree. I think it is up there as far as adaptations go. It's very well done. It still looks good. It's still easily watchable. Most of the references are still easy to catch. I think there's a few that maybe haven't aged super well, or like the thing that was meant to be a bit nicher, like nerdiness, is now just like a basic mainstream knowledge, so it doesn't really hit, the joke doesn't hit quite the same.
Like Zelda opening up the chest.
Yeah, at this point it's not really just a nerd thing. Everyone and their mom now knows what Zelda sounds like, even if you haven't played the games. So it's not necessarily like a niche nerdy thing, like, oh, that's just a video game noise versus, oh, that's Zelda's video game noise.
Oh yeah, I'm wearing a Zelda shirt today.
I see that.
Yeah, well, it's Zelda combined with Hausu.
Hausu, it's got a little bit of Naruto in there too.
Well, yeah, because it's the demon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very good. It's very good. But yeah, no, I get why people could argue Scott Pilgrim being, like, very high up there. I don't know if it's necessarily the greatest adaptation, just because while the casting is really solid, the stylization of it is one of those things where it almost comes down to taste of, like, how you like. How
comic booky you want it. Do you want Speed Racer that ties too heavily into it? Scott Pilgrim that is like kind of a happy medium ground, but is a little heavy-handed, or Battle Angel Alita that has none of that reference.
Exactly. And
style.
Exactly. And I think it honestly will always come down to personal preference.
Okay.
I enjoy how Scott Pilgrim looks. I think that the comic book plus video game styling looks really cool, and I'm going to look into more movies that do this styling, but it's not what I normally gravitate to.
Okay.
Because normally I find it really busy and honestly, like, maybe a little distracting from the movie. But for Scott Pilgrim, it works. That's the whole basis of the movie.
Well, and I think it works too is because the sets are so simple in the background that that it's not fighting with one thing. Especially like when Scott's fighting Patel and he jumps up, it quickly transitions into that jumping action line pose.
Yes. Oh, no, I completely agree. I think the other thing that made it kind of awkward for people to, like, come through and, like, really back Scott Pilgrim is, we've talked regularly how I am the poster child for people who like bad movies.
Mm-hmm.
Scott Pilgrim isn't a bad movie, but it has a lot of the same tropes. There's a lot of similar fighting, there's a lot of nonsense, there's a lot of just, like, bad
stiffness.
There's a lot of awkwardness happening.
Yeah.
However, the extra details and background references change it from being an enjoyable, stupid movie to something that I feel like I must pay attention to enjoy. Which isn't a bad thing. It changes the like, genre completely, and I think for people who were Scott Pilgrim fans, that's what they wanted. Yeah. That was, like, the whole goal. But it does mean that it is skipping out on a genre of people who are looking for just a goofy fight.
Yeah, I can see that, but I also don't think just a goofy fight would work for this movie either. It's got more heart and soul to it.
I completely agree. I just think that when it was advertised, they leaned into giving off the goofy fight. If you didn't already know what Scott Pilgrim was and you watched the trailers, you were going in assuming you were going to be watching dumb anime fighting. And you got a lot more. Not necessarily a bad thing, but it did change, like, who was going to then buy the movie.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
So, Chris, what rating do you give Scott Pilgrim versus the World?
I give it a good weird. I think there's plenty in here that, like, adds to its weirdness factor. It's one of the most interesting examples of the video game weirdness and how to bring that into a realistic world. There's plenty in the story that is weird. There's plenty in the writing that makes them weird and awkward. But at the heart of it, it is a good movie. It's just not my favorite movie.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same camp. I think I'm going to give it a good weird rating. I definitely appreciate it more. I think if I had gone back and we had done this when we started the podcast, I would have given it I wouldn't have rated it because we didn't do that back then.
Sure.
I probably would have given it a bad good rating.
I can understand.
But now that I've grown up a little bit more and watched more stuff like this, and actually listened to the commentary and reasoning behind why they did what they did, I have a better appreciation for it and why it deviates. And also, that's just something in general I've become more appreciative of.
Yeah.
Series that deviate just ever so slightly or have to deviate because of creative reasons or whatnot. So yeah, I get a good weird. I think is a good niche for Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
I agree.
So with you not being gravitated towards this one, would you recommend Scott Pilgrim versus the World?
I would. I don't think me not being a big fan means that it's any less of a thing to recommend. I think there's tons of people who are going to enjoy this movie. It's just not my favorite thing.
Yeah. No, I agree. I don't know. I would probably be selective on who I recommend this to. I think in general it is worth at least one watch.
Oh, sure.
Especially just to study Edgar Wright's style and how he adapts it to something that's not very British, if that's all you know him from.
That's true. This is a much more American humor than he normally does.
Yeah. So, yeah, I definitely hit and miss on who I'd recommend it to. But in a general, I say give it a watch.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But now is time for Season 6 Bingo. A new season and a new game. And we have to make an announcement with this one.
We do.
There is a first place winner, and it goes to my cousin and longtime supporter of the show, Riley.
Congratulations!
He won the good category, so he will get to pick the first episode of Season 7, as well as 2 mic reviews, which, thank you, Riley, and we look forward to watching, and I already know what you are making us watch, and honestly, I hate you a little bit.
I already know too, and I approve.
I know you do. But Chris and I are both playing bingo as well, and you can too. Rules for players are simple. 1 stamp per episode per card. Cards can be found on our socials at TGTBTW Podcast on Instagram and Threads, or on TGTBTW Podcast on Twitter, and you are free to email the request at tgtbtwpodcast@gmail.com. You can use any of the 3 variations of bingo cards, but each stamp must be associated with an episode from Season 6. Second place gets to choose a deep dive and a mic review. Third place gets 2 mic reviews. Fourth and fifth place each get to choose a mic review. So feel free to share and add us on social media for participation. Rules are slightly different for Chris and I. We only get 2 stamps per deep dive. First to get bingo and either of the good, bad, and weird cards get to choose a movie that they feel fits that category for Season 7. Chris, what are you choosing for your bingo?
This is a harder one, I think. I think for my first one, I'm going to go off my bad card, and I will include our rant about Marvel and Disney as one of my options.
Good choice.
And I think on my good card, I will be using the good use of self-discovery from the main character, even though I still think by the end of this, Scott is honestly still an ass. He is a nicer ass all around.
I'm going to go with my bad card.
Mm-hmm.
Bad guy has a dumb plot twist.
That's fair.
Because I still do not like the computer chip. I think it's one of the dumbest things that was written, and I'm glad O'Malley abandoned that. Because with the amount of times they made out and where the chip is, you would have found it?
I agree. It is silly.
And on my good card, I'm going to go Nicho references a super obscure movie with Tokyo Tribe because I keep getting to bring that one up.
I had thought about that one. Good call.
But yeah, it's Scott Pilgrim versus the World, and I'm really excited for our next episode too, because we're doing a send off to summer.
Yep, summer is coming to an end quickly.
Bit of nostalgia that I am 100% sure will piss off a few people.
I'm sure.
Yeah. But anyway, this has been the Good, the Bad, and the Weird podcast.
Thanks for listening.
Peace. Thank you for stopping by this here town of the Good, the Bad, and the Weird. We appreciate your listenership, and if you want more of our takes in your life, feel free to check us out on social media at The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Podcast, or TGTBTW for short. As well, if we missed a fact, your favorite part of a movie, or just have a suggestion and want to reach out and say howdy, feel free to email us at tgtbtwpodcast@gmail.com. And feel free to join our Discord at The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Podcast, where we talk about movies, just share random banter here and there. And always check out our podcasters, streamers, or any other content creator we shout out in our episodes. We really appreciate it. And as always, thank you for listening. Peace.